Hello and welcome. In this video, I am going to be talking about backstage behavior, and we're going to be looking at how what's happening backstage and your behavior may actually be sabotaging your performance, and even worse than that, contributing to any kind of physical pain you may already be experiencing as a musician, and performance anxiety and any other kind of emotional challenges. It can all be exacerbated by what you're choosing to do backstage, and most of us aren't even aware of it. So you're in the right place here if you're a performer of any skill level, but especially professionals who are used to performing. This is something you do. You're in the right place if you've got physical pain when you play your instrument, you're trying to overcome an injury, you're trying to get back into the game. Right now, I realize it's pandemic time around the world, and still there's less performing going on in person. But now is like the best time for musicians to be really going deep to uncover some of those old habits that we have that we may not even know that we have, so that we can come out of the pandemic, go back to live performing better than ever, knowing how to prevent and heal from pain, knowing how to prevent performance anxiety or to at least minimize it greatly. And also, it's the best time to practice improving your skills at home if you're not actually able to perform right now. So actually, I am live now on Facebook, and I would love to know if you are hearing me. So I'm going to hop over just for a second onto my phone to see if this is working. And I would love to know if anybody could just send me a comment. Let me know if you are hearing me. I want to make sure that my sound is working. I am seeing this live video. So if you could send me a comment and just tell me if the audio is working. I don't want to waste my time here. It's happened before that the audio wasn't working and I had to start over. So I would really, yes, thank you, someone. I don't know what your name is because I don't see anything other than Facebook user, but thank you for telling me that you can hear me. I am very grateful. Thank you, both of you. If you want to share your name, then I'll be able to communicate with you, but don't feel pressured at all to do that. But yes, please, let's make this interactive. I'm here live now with you, and I would just love it if you would share with me what your instrument is or where you're from, or just say, hi, Jennifer, so that I can talk to you more personally. And if you've got questions or comments, if you want to share your experiences here in the comments, that would be delightful. Hey, Nandini, thank you for sharing your name. I am so glad you're here. Thank you. And yeah, also you can share this video for people. Actually, maybe you can't because I'm going live in the Musicians Advantage Facebook group. But I'm going to upload this to YouTube and it'll be shareable later. So if you feel that this is useful and you want to share it with anybody, whoever's out there, I would be delighted for more people to learn this. Hello, Celtic Heart from Oregon. Hello. And George is here, and David. Hey, great to have you all here. Thank you for telling me you're here. Okay, so just for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí. I'm the creator of the Art of Freedom method for conscious living and masterful artistry. I am a professional violinist, have been my whole life, and I am a life and artistry coach helping musicians to overcome pain and live a happier, healthier, more balanced life and enjoy abundant success as a musician. So let's talk about this topic. What goes on backstage? So I've been talking recently with a number of my coaching clients, people in my group program also, who we've been talking about what goes on backstage, and a lot of it is actually the interpersonal dynamics between colleagues, or it's actually a lot of that can be neutral, but a lot of it, unfortunately, can be kind of mindless and not helpful. So what actually goes on backstage We may think nothing of it because we're just used to it, and that's what happens. But let's just talk a little bit about the typical things that I've seen over decades of playing, performing live and being backstage. Tell me if you can relate to this. First of all, this doesn't mean everybody does this, but a lot of people will rush. Maybe you're caught in traffic, you show up late to a rehearsal, you run in, you're terrified that you might be late, so you're panting, you're running, you made it, and everything's at hyper speed, and you're rushing to unpack your instrument, you're rushing to put it together. Even if you're not late, there are times when maybe you haven't had enough time to prepare. So you might be frantically practicing those last hard little licks, those technical challenges that you haven't quite mastered yet. It's your last chance before you go on stage in front of the public to really solidify those little bits that you haven't quite mastered yet, but you know you can do it if you just practice a little bit more. Can you relate to that? Like speed practicing? Or maybe there are just things that you're not comfortable with. So you want to reassure yourself that you know your part, that you're prepped, you're ready to go. And so you could be backstage with your music and you could be hyper focusing on what you're doing. In that sense, you can be like tuning out all the other people if you're hyper concentrating on what you're doing. But I'm going to talk in a moment about why that's not the best thing to be doing backstage either, even though it may feel like exactly what you need to do. And hi, Angel, I'm glad you're here. And Marty, hey, great to have you here. Other things that happen backstage, and actually if you have anything that you want to add to this list, just throw it in the comments because a lot goes on backstage. I mentioned, trying to organize your music. If you've ever played in a Baroque group, and I know some of you out there have, I'm a modern violinist and a Baroque violinist, and there's something about playing in Baroque groups, early music groups, where there's a lot of music. There's a lot of sheet music, and there's a lot of kind of trying to get it in the right order. And I've actually been backstage many a time cutting and pasting and drawing route maps of I hate this when you're playing early music and there are tons and tons of repeats and like you need a road map to know where you're going in the part, and in the last minute you're reviewing to make sure you're not going to miss a repeat, or you're not going to skip the wrong section or forget to do that repeat, or you're doing this section and it has to be 3 times and then you jump to that one and do So that's one thing that I've experienced backstage. But then there's this other thing that goes on, unfortunately, all too often, and it really is just a human nature thing. It's going to happen everywhere. Some groups are admittedly worse about this than others, and there are certainly groups that do not have this problem. But it does happen that people will be backstage, and there are some musicians, all it takes is one to create a bad vibe backstage. One person or more complaining. Have you ever been backstage and you're hearing people complaining? Or worse yet, you kind of hear people whispering, gossiping about so-and-so. There's like judgment going on. And what happens to you? What happens to you when you're overhearing that? And very importantly, what happens to you when you're engaged in that? Trust me, if you get sucked into the complaining, blaming, gossiping mode, they're not the same thing, but they're negative energies, okay? And I guarantee that if you're engaged in that, your mind, body, self is going to go into a compressed state. Now, see what I just did to myself? I compressed my state to show you. And if I do this and I keep doing this, and maybe I'm frustrated or I'm annoyed, and the conductor keeps doing this over and over again, and so back in the wind section does XYZ, and the trumpets are too loud, and the audience never pays attention, and how do you feel if I do this to myself right now? If you're watching me, you're probably not feeling nearly as comfortable. as if I back off, I let go of all that, and I let my mind and body free up and open up, and really, I drop the negative vibes. Can you feel that difference? Just throw a yes or a Y. If you're on your phone, just type the letter Y. Can you feel the difference? Just watch me for a moment. Just take in what you're seeing and check in with your body and see what happens to you if I start to compress and I start to pull myself down and I start to get tight. Can you feel the difference? Somebody's saying, oh yes. And it's not very pleasant, right? If I do this, you feel tight just like me. All right, I'm going to let up. What happens if I do that? What happened to you right now when I did that? And did you hear how my voice changed? Suddenly, everything has softened and opened up, and I bet you started to breathe more easily, didn't you? Okay, so this is just a super practical demonstration of what we call mirror neurons. They're neurons that human beings have that are designed to pick up the energies, the vibes, what we see. It's what causes us to be empathic. It's what causes us to pick up someone else's energy. You feel that? Okay, you don't like that. I don't like that. So let go of it. The problem is, most of the time, we are oblivious to what we're picking up through our mirror neurons from others around us. Not only that, but we're oblivious to the effect we are having on other people by thinking in ways that are frankly destructive to ourselves, our own mental and physical, emotional, spiritual state. When you think, your every single thought that ever passes through your brain has a corresponding effect in your physical body. What you think is what you get, and what other people think is what you get too. So here's where it's really, really, really important to observe, and it's actually a skill, okay? Empathy, picking up on other people's vibes, having that sensitivity is what makes people empathic, kind, loving people if they want to be that way. It's what makes people miserable if they can't do anything about the negative vibes coming their way. They don't know how to deal with them. They don't know how to process them. They don't know how to overcome them. But that kind of sensitivity is also what makes for great music making, really, truly great art. To make great art, to have a great performance, you need to be able to process all kinds of emotions really, really, really quickly. And it is a skill. It is a natural ability that we all have. We all have mirror neurons, but the ability to be conscious of what's actually happening in the moment and then to make a conscious, constructive choice about which direction we want to go in the next moment, that is a skill. And it may be one of the most important, if not the most important skill and gift that we have as human beings. We have free will, and therefore that means that we have the will, we have the potential to choose, to will the next moment of our lives. Which direction do you want your performance to go in? Do you want to pick up the negative vibes backstage and allow your system to shrink and compress and fill with tension and to be unaware of why, and then take that compressed, anxious, tense or angry or frustrated state with you on stage? I mean, do you think your music is going to be better because of that? Or is it likely to be sabotaged and, suffer because of that? I'm sure you all can agree that you don't want that. But, if you're backstage and you're maybe hearing people talking about you, one of my students talked about this recently. it's hard. It's really hard if you're hearing people criticizing you behind your back. And unfortunately, it does happen. There are unkind people out there. I like to think the world is rosy, and I love my rose-colored glasses, and I have very, very little contact with people like that, thankfully. Also, I'm home most of the time, so I don't go anywhere. But the truth is, there are, people out there who are not the kindest people. But if you pick up stuff, you're going to pick it up, but then you have to know what to do with it. And I'm actually, in this video, towards the end, I'm going to tell you about an upcoming program that I have. I've designed it especially for musicians in pain. It's called Tame That Pain Now, Play Smarter and Feel Better in 30 Days. And so I'm going to tell you about that later, but I want you to know that that's available, and it's starting in July. There's limited availability, so please message me or send me an email to jennifer@artoffreedom.me if you're curious and you'd like to know more about this. When I talk about musicians in pain, it's not just about physical pain. There is no such thing as just physical pain, because you can't separate the body from the mind and the emotions. We are one entity, one organism. And whatever, I'm going to say it again, whatever you think has a corresponding result in your body. And your bodily physical state also influences your mood and the way you're thinking. Okay? So this is also picking up those kinds of things backstage I told you, it starts to cause your body to react. It's basically a startle reaction, a fight, flight, freeze response that is instinctual. It's an animal survival reflex. It's a good reflex because it's designed to keep us safe. The problem is, you're probably not just going to let yourself run away and miss the performance, and you're not going to fight your colleagues, and you're not going to fight, hopefully, you're not going to get into a fist fight with the conductor if you're complaining about the conductor, that kind of stuff. It's like your system goes into a startle reactive mode, but you're more likely to go into a freeze mode because you can't run away, you can't fight, so you're going to play dead. Now, take a playing dead person on stage, guess what your music is going to sound like? It's going to sound dead, right? And if your body is like that, what's actually happening is you're blocking your energy flow, and you can't make great music if you're blocking your energy flow. You can't be creative, you can't be receptive. You can overcome that. And most likely, if you're a professional, you know how to get over it once you start playing, at least sufficiently to do well. But I'm telling you, unless you're consciously taking care of yourself, your performance is just not going to be at the great artistry level that you truly want. And yes, this kind of negative cycle can increase your physical pain and your performance anxiety and your happiness levels. All of those things can be affected by what goes on backstage. And it's not just about what other people are doing, okay? This is about how you are paying attention to yourself. Are you just mindlessly taking in what's happening? Are you the one that's rushing around? Are you the one that's frantic, that got there late? Are you the one that's worried that you're not ready and you're frantically trying to practice that hard part? Are you the one that is just, not really present, and maybe your mind is off wandering to, thinking about going out later after the concert, or you're thinking about what you had for dinner, or you're thinking about some problems that your family has that you haven't been able to deal with? Where is your attention? Where is your mind? Now, here's another important point that I want to bring up. By the way, tell me, does this make sense? Before I go on, I just want to make sure that this is kind of ringing true to any of you. And if you want to add any of your own experiences, that would be really interesting to hear like if you've experienced this. I'm pulling up the comments here. Rose wine actually is not my favorite. I prefer red. Here says Angel. Angel says, no, I'm the opposite. I'm always the early one. My heart needs at least half an hour to acclimatize to the new environment. Then there are 36 strings that need tuning. Yeah, there's a lot to do for a harvest. Okay, yes. All right. So there, I see a lot of yeses here. It sounds like we're all on the same page, which is great. Okay, so this last main point that I want to bring up. It's not about what other people are doing. What other people backstage are doing influences you for sure, and it will, no matter what, and it's supposed to influence you because your mirror neurons are supposed to do their job, right? But it's not just about what other people are doing, it's about what you're doing, and ultimately, it comes down to, I mean, you could also be backstage doing some meditation, right, or some people like to do breath work. I'm not interested myself in breath work, and I don't teach that for good reasons that I'm not going to go into. But there are calming and meditative practices that you can do backstage that can be really helpful. But I'm just going to say that even with those things, it's possible to go too much into your own little world. Like if you've got people over there complaining, those people are in a mad rush, that person's nervous, negative energy is around and you're picking it all up, you might have the reaction of wanting to kind of close yourself off from all that. You might just find a little dark corner in the backstage and not talk to anybody. Can anybody relate to this where you kind of want to block everybody out and just focus and do your own thing? Okay, plenty of people do that too, and that's better than the other thing. However, it's all in how you do this, because it's perfectly possible to kind of shut down when you're shutting people out. And it might feel like what you need to do to stay focused and concentrated, like putting horse blinders on. And it may help you to a point, but even that is not going to get you into the state that is conducive for the best possible creative performance. You know why? Because the best performance, in my opinion, comes from being in an open state where your internal experience is not separate from your experience of the outside world. So your internal and external worlds are not sharply delineated, where you have an experience of wholeness, and that means you're open and receptive. If you're playing with colleagues, you need to be able to take in what they're doing, because everybody who's ever performed with somebody else knows the unexpected can happen, right? Sometimes wonderfully unexpected, spontaneous things can happen. You need to, even if it's a classical piece that is supposed to go exactly like so, and there's no improvisation involved, you still have plenty of room for creative responsiveness, but only if you're open to receiving the information that's coming to you from your colleagues or your conductor. You need to be able to be flexible in mind and body so you can respond instantly to whatever's going on, positive or negative. You need to know how to take it in and process it quickly and consciously create the next note, the next phrase, turn it into something fluid and emotionally beautiful, or ugly if it's supposed to be ugly, right? Some music is supposed to be ugly. What I mean is, if you're backstage and you're too heavily balanced on the inward focus, then you're going to go on stage and you're going to be out of balance. That's not the optimum state to be in. Conversely, you can be too outwardly focused and completely oblivious to what's going on inside of you. Sometimes when people are super nervous, they try to distract themselves and they go around chatting with everybody. Even if it's really happy chatter, it's still, it's uptight. There's a tension there, a nervous tension. And it may feel like that kind of pacing around and talking with other people is exactly what you need, but then you are out of balance with too much exterior focus. So learning the skill, and this is a skill that requires consciousness and really highly attuned self-observational skills. You need to be knowing, am I focusing too much on what's outside? Am I focusing too much on what's inside? How can I balance this out? It's a skill that can be taught. I teach this, and it's a skill that absolutely needs to be practiced, not just backstage, but throughout the day, right? Does this make sense? You want to be able to balance out. So you're not shutting out your audience. You're not shutting out your colleagues. That makes you rigid, and your music will reflect that. Even if it's absolutely correct, it's not going to be as free. And that it'll miss that inspirational spark, that kind of mind-body emotional freedom makes the space for. You want to be open to receiving inspiration and be responsive to what comes your way. You also want to be open to receiving just inspired ideas from inside yourself that you can act on, and then you need to be connecting with your colleagues so that you can give them your inspiration, and hopefully they will pick it up. And it becomes this constant interplay of energies in a positive way between you and your colleagues, and ideally you and your audience. So your audience actually is included and is part of this. All of this needs to be happening backstage. You can't just, you can if you know how to do this. But what I was going to say is you can't just turn this on when the lights turn off and it's time for you to start playing. You can if you already know how to do this and you've been practicing this and you're at a very high level and you don't take in the stuff backstage, and you can, if you know how to do this, you can be super late to a rehearsal, not warm up, throw everything together, go on stage and be on and open. It absolutely is possible. But for most of us, we need that time backstage before we go on, before we play, that I like to call the golden period. And we need to know how to make the most of that golden period in a way that is super constructive for ourselves and everyone else around us. If you're not conscious about it, then basically you can be blown around by the wind. No matter, it's like, it depends on the energies of the other people that you pick up, and you don't want to be at the mercy of other people's energies. You don't want to, have to be around happy people to be happy. I don't anyway. I want to be in charge of my own emotions, my own psychophysical state. I want to have control over my technique. And the only way I'm going to be consistent with my technique on stage with people around me that are maybe out to lunch or mindless and they're not really paying attention, I can still do my best, but only if I have the skills and I know how to do this. Okay? I'm going to come over here because I can see the names here, but I can't see them on my laptop. Let me see if anything is resonating with anybody. I'd love to hear more of your comments. Does this make sense to everybody? Yeah, George says I do some of these things at times. Oh, I love this, David. A good-natured sense of humor does wonders to relax and put you in a performing mood. Operative word here is good. Words are a good-natured sense of humor. I totally agree. There's nothing like laughter to break up stagnant, stuck energies. Laughter is a balm for the soul when it's used in a good-natured way. It can be really encouraging for people. It can help put nervous people at ease. It can make you feel better. It can be uplifting and brighten and lighten a mood that might be kind of heavy otherwise. So yeah, I'm totally with you. A good sense of humor is the great shock absorber of life. I love that. Let's put that quote in my group. I'm going to quote you, David. This is great. Yeah, George says I like to block out and do my own thing backstage. And like I said, that can be helpful up to a point, right? And then ideally, one would be able to, you'd want to be able to do your own thing and still be open and receptive to what's going on around you, so that when you go on stage, you're open and receptive to what's going on around you. So, okay, well, that's what I've got for you today. Basically, what you need, okay, so I presented the problem and how this kind of mental and physical tension can actually increase physical pain and emotional pain. And what you really need is a comprehensive system to help you be really, really, really aware of what's going on inside yourself. You need to have excellent self-observation skills. You need to know which direction you're going in overall. You need to know if you're tending into a compressed direction, like I showed you at the beginning. That's an exaggeration of it, but we go around like this all the time, right? Without even knowing it, and it's not healthy. Or if you're going in the opposite direction, maybe you just had a nice walk on the beach and no cares in the world, and you know your part, and you love the people you're playing with, and you're excited about playing with for this wonderful audience. You can come backstage in such a relaxed, positive mood. But it's either one or the other. You're either tending in a direction that is negative and compressing. And by negative, I don't mean that it's necessarily bad. What I mean is just it's a more downward compressing energy that if you kept going in that direction, it would be bad, right? It's either you're going in that direction or you're going in this direction where you are opening and freeing up, and you're creating so much lively space inside of you for energy to flow. Like that's what I'm doing right now. And so whatever ideas come to you, just you share them and you express them. That's what you want to be able to do through whatever your instrument is, without blocking it, without interfering with a kind of mindset that causes tension, because that's going to influence your sound and your creativity. So you need a system that's going to teach you how to be super aware of which direction you're going in, and then a system that teaches you how to reverse direction if you're going into the mode of more tension, which tends towards pain. You need to be able to reverse that consciously by doing what we call constructive thinking. And then you need to know when to do the constructive thinking, how to do it, and that takes practice. So you need a system that is going to teach you the skills, but also give you the framework to practice these skills. I teach something called awareness etudes from a Primal Alexander system, which is Alexander technique taught hands-free. It's incredible, cutting-edge Alexander technique. I've talked a lot about this before, but I'm traditionally trained as an Alexander teacher to do hands-on work. Did that for years, and I've opted to not use my hands anymore because I feel like doing the Primal Alexander awareness etudes and having my students do those every day and practice them is much more empowering for a student to be able to take charge of their own well-being. So I teach awareness etudes from Primal Alexander. I teach the 5 pillars of my Art of Freedom method, which are purpose, mind, body, spirit, and artistry. And I put it into a really simple but comprehensive framework to help musicians systematically shift how they're thinking and how they're feeling in their bodies actually really quickly. And then it gets a little more complex when you start applying all of that to, challenging music. But there's a system, and we build on it little by little, so that if you've got pain, you learn how to be in charge of your own healing, your own recovery, and preventing future injuries is extremely important. So if you're curious about the system that I teach, the Art of Freedom method and Primal Alexander, then please message me through Facebook Messenger or send me an email to jennifer@artoffreedom.me. That's actually my website. It's www.artoffreedom.me. That's .me. You can check out my website. You can email me. But ask me about my upcoming course if you want to learn more, because I've just put together this course that I'm really excited about. It includes private coaching with me, a very powerful but simple self-study course. It's 3 weeks, and also a really, really great group of musicians who are on the same wavelength, wanting the same kinds of things, wanting to overcome pain and feel more confident in themselves. The program's called Tame That Pain Now, Play Smarter, because you learn how to play smarter with more effortless ease. Play smarter and feel better in 30 days. And I promise you, my students who do the work as prescribed, and it's really short, really easy, people who do it consistently every day, and I'm talking about like 5 to 10 minutes a day, and it's so simple, it's ridiculous. But the people who do that, it works without fail. After 30 days, you are going to feel better. Your pain might not be completely gone. That's of course up to the individual. I mean, some people have had pain for years. Some people with pain for years, it's disappeared in that amount of time. But usually if it's pain that's been going on for a very long time, it might take a little longer. But for sure, after 30 days, you're going to feel better. That's just guaranteed if you do the work. And it's easy and quick. So if you have any questions or you're curious, please just message me or send me an email. We're starting towards the end of July, so there's plenty of time, but I have some special bonuses for people who sign up soon, like by July 4th, I think is my early bird registration deadline. And it's limited availability. I want to keep it small so that everybody has the best experience and the most one-on-one with me. So yeah, don't delay, like reach out to me as soon as you can if you're curious, and I'll ask you a few questions and make sure that you're a good fit for my program and send you all the information about it and how to register. Good. And if you have any questions about anything or comments that, come to you after this video is over, please just come into the Facebook group and post a question anytime. You can post anything in my group about this material. You can also send me a message privately and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Oh, I love it. Somebody here, I said on the desktop, I can't see the name, so I'm going to pop over here onto my phone again so I can actually see what people are saying before I sign off. Here. By the way, if you're coming on late, you can watch the replay after I'm done. It's going to be up here, and I'm going to put it on YouTube so you can share it with friends if you think anybody might be interested. Angel says, take the course. It's the best thing I've done for myself. Thank you, Angel. Love that. Oh, David said, I wish it was my own quote, but I read it in a book. You could have just not said it. Yeah, it is entirely true. Yeah, I love that quote, David. David said, a good sense of humor is the great shock absorber of life. I just love that. That's really good. We'll call it anonymous. All right, that's what I've got for you today. I hope this got kind of stimulated your curiosity. Pay attention to what's going on inside of you and around you when you're backstage, and practice paying attention to what's going on inside of you and around you in daily life, right? Now is the time to get really good at this before all the live performances come back. I mean, we're still in the pandemic, and around the world, many people, unfortunately, are not performing, but now is the best time to take a course like this so that now you probably have a little more time if you're not performing. So if you take this course, you're going to head off potential injuries, you're going to recover from old injuries, and you're just going to find a whole new way of being able to play your instrument with more effortless ease and a lot more fun. So that's my promise to you. If you're curious, get in touch with me. All right, enjoy your day. Thank you so much for being here. And now I need to find the finish button. See you in the Facebook group. Bye-bye.